Good morning, students. Under the chapter Body Movements, the next topic that we will be studying today is parts of the human skeleton. So, what is a human skeletal system? The skeletal system is the body's central framework. It consists of bones and connective tissues, including cartilage, tendons, and ligaments. It is also called as the musculoskeletal system. Altogether, the skeleton system makes up about 20% of the person's body weight. Now we will be studying about the structure of bones. The outer surface of the bone is called as periosteum. The next layer of the bone is known as the compact bones. And within the compact bones, there are several layers of bone which is called as the cancellous bone. And in many bones, the cancellous bone protects the innermost part of the bone, which is the bone marrow. You can see the different layers of the bone in this picture. Now we will be studying about the parts of human skeleton. The skeletal system can be broken down into two parts, which is the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton is made up of bones that makes up the vertical axis of the body, such as the bones of skull, neck, chest and spine, as you can see in this picture. While the appendicular skeleton consists of bones that makes up the arms and legs, as well as the bones which attaches them to the axial skeleton, which is the pectoral girdle and the pelvic girdle. Now we will be studying about the bones which make up the axial skeleton. First amongst it is the skull bones. The adult skull comprises of 22 bones. These bones can be further classified based upon their location. They are classified as cranial bones and facial bones. As you can see in this picture, the cranial bones are 8 bones which forms the bulk of skull, and the main function is to protect the brain. While the facial bones consist of 18 bones, and they are found in the front of the skull and they make up the face. The next bone of the axial skeleton is the auditory ossicle. The auditory ossicles are 6 small bones found within the inner ear canal in the skull. There are 3 auditory ossicles on each side of the head. They are known as Malleus Incus and Stapes, as you can see in this picture. They work together to transmit the sound waves to the inner ear from the external environment. The next bone is hyoid. The hyoid is a small U-shaped bone which is found just inferior to the mandible, as you can see it in this picture. The hyoid is the only bone in our body that does not form a joint with any other bone. It is also a floating bone. The hyoid's function is to help the trachea to open. Now we will be studying the bones which makes up the vertebral column. The vertebral column is made up of 33 bones. The first 24 bone makes up the vertebrae, which is followed by sacrum and coccyx. The coccyx is also known as the tailbone, and it consists of 4 bones which is fused together, while the sacrum consists of 5 bones which are fused together. And the vertebrae, which is made up of 24 bones, is further divided into 3, which is cervical vertebrae, which is the first 7 bones of the vertebrae, and the thoracic vertebrae, which is the 12 bones which is present below the cervical vertebrae, and the last is the lumbar vertebrae, which is the 5 bones which is present below the thoracic vertebrae. So the next bones which makes up the axial skeleton is the bones of thoracic cage. The thoracic cage is made up of sternum, which is also called as the breastbone, as you can see in this picture. It is a strong bone in the center of the chest which holds the ribs in its position. And there are 12 pairs of ribs which are present in the thoracic cage in addition to the sternum. The first 7 pairs of rib attaches to the front of the sternum, as you can see it in this picture. Others are linked to the sternum via cartilage, while some of them have no attachment and they are called as the floating ribs. As you can see in this picture, these bones of the ribs are called as the floating ribs. Now we will be studying about the bones which makes the appendicular skeleton. The first amongst it is the pectoral girdle. It is where the arms, that is the upper limbs, are attached to the axial skeleton. It is made up of clavicle, which is also known as the collarbone, and scapula, which is also called as the shoulder blade. There are 2 of each of them on either side of the arm. So now we will be studying about the bones which makes up the upper limb. Each arm of our human body contains 30 bones. It consists of humerus, which is the long bone, and it forms the upper arm. And the next is radius. It is one of the 2 long bones that forms the forearm, and it is found on the side of thumb finger. While the other is ulna. It is the second long bone which forms the forearm, and it is found on the side of the pinky finger. The next bones are called as carpals. It is a group of 8 bones that forms the wrist. And next are metacarpals. It is a group of 5 bones which is found in the middle area of the hand. And the next is phalanges. It is a group of 14 bones that make up the fingers, as you can see in this picture. And the next bones which make up the appendicular skeleton are the pelvic girdle. A pelvic girdle is commonly known as the hips or the hip bone. The pelvic girdle connects the lower limb, which is the leg bones, to the axial skeleton. It is made up of 2 hip bones, one for each leg. Each hip bone consists of 3 parts, which is known as the ilium, which is the top portion of the hip bone, and the ischium, which is a curved bone that makes up the base of the hip bone, and the pubis, which is located in the front part of the hip bone. You can see all these parts in this picture clearly. Now we will be studying about the bones which makes up the lower limb. Each leg of our body is made up of 30 bones. It consists of femur, which is the large bone of the upper limb, and patella, which is also known as the kneecap, and tibia, which is the main bone of the lower limb, and fibula, which is the second bone which makes up the lower limb, and tarsals. It is a group of 7 bones that makes up the ankle, and metatarsals are a group of 5 bones that make up the middle area of the foot, and phalanges are a group of 14 bones that comprises of the toe. We come to the end of different parts of human skeleton. Thank you, students.